I'm Chris Bagg of Chris Bagg Coaching Group. In this video, we're going to talk about setting your goal wattages for different distances and how to pace those different distances. So there are four major distances in triathlon: sprint, Olympic, half iron, and full iron. Basically 12.5 miles, 25 miles, 56 miles, and 112 miles. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to combine sprint and Olympic into one because they're pretty similar. Now that you know your FTP from the previous video, we're going to assign you different target wattages for those different distances. For sprint and Olympic, you're basically 100% of threshold, maybe a few watts below that. So for our fictional example athlete whose FTP is 209, we're gonna aim for really like maybe 200 to 205 for Olympic, maybe right up to threshold and maybe a little over for sprint. But you really wanna be careful about going over your threshold power at any point because it really does hurt your legs. For a half iron, 56 miles, we want 90% of threshold power. So for our 209 watt FTP athlete, we're gonna be aiming for around 190. So basically 20 watts below that. For Ironman, 112 miles of riding, we're aiming for 80% of FTP. For this particular athlete, that's gonna be 168 to 170 watts. Those are your goal wattages for those different distances. It'd be nice if it were that simple, though, to just be like, great, Ironman, 112 miles, I'm just gonna be exactly 168 watts the whole time. It doesn't work that way. There are hills, there are winds, there are descents, there are other riders to deal with, and so your power is gonna be going up and down. What we want in triathlon is we want a really, really tight power band. We don't want big peaks, we don't want really low valleys. We want just a really nice, tight band of power. In bike racing, the best way to get from point A to point B, the fastest, is to go as hard as you can on the hills and then save as much energy and coast on the descents. If you've watched bike racing, you'll notice that all of the big attacks and all the big separations happen on hills because that's where you can get rid of other people. In triathlon, that is the worst thing you can do. Because basically you're sending a message to your legs that the hills are really hard and then you're just completely shutting your legs off on the descents. And what we want for any triathlon is we want your legs to basically just be working steadily the whole time. So here's what you're gonna do. You never want to go 10% above your goal wattage, and you really don't wanna go below 50% of your goal wattage. So let's talk about our example athlete who's doing an Ironman, and her goal wattage is 170 watts over the course of 112 miles. On climbs, on windy sections, when she has to pass another athlete, we don't want to go above 187, so 10% above that. Probably fudge it a little bit and say 190. Athletes do get excited in races, which is good. And then on descents, we really don't want her to go below 50% or 85 watts. So she's going to try to keep pedaling when she's going downhill or downwind. Sometimes that's not possible. There are steep descents, sometimes there are technical descents. Nothing's ever perfect. There are going to be times where you have to coast, but the idea remains the same. Don't make big power spikes. Don't stop pedaling for long periods of time. We want just a really nice, even effort for the whole day, and that will leave your legs the least tired for you to be able to run off the bike. In this next video, we're going to talk about using heart rate versus power and how you can use the two of them together in your racing.